Hi, if you've just joined us, I'll give it another minute and then we'll make a start. Okay, we're going to make a start. Good morning. Welcome to our Q&A session on the new public EV charging round. We just opened that on the 30th of April, so a week ago, and which closes on Friday, the 31st of May. Many of you will have met the ECA team. Today we've got Richard Briggs, the group manager of our new delivery and partnerships team, and me. My team's now the funds delivery team, which covers charging, transport, and other funds that are offered by ECA. So today we'll have three parts to the presentation. We're starting with a discussion by Richard on the landscape for this round, developments in the market and the government approach, and he'll provide an outline of what we're looking for in this round. I'll cover the process for applying the new criteria that we've set out, as it is different from previous rounds, and also how to apply. We're going to answer questions at the end, but please do post questions in the chat at any time. We will pick them up at the end as well. And just to let you all know that we are recording the session, so we will capture everything that comes up in the Q&A, and we'll email the Q&A out in the next few days. So if there's something that you wanted to find out about after the webinar concludes, you can email the applications at eca.govt.nz email address. All right, so over to you, Richard.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou, and thank you very much for giving us your time for this session. Just a little bit of background as to what's going on, and I'm sure it'll be as a surprise to no one, but the government's goal remains 10,000 public charging points to be committed by 2030. This is part of a wider work program underway across government to supercharge the EV infrastructure. Also, the Minister has made it quite clear he wants his focus now to be on reducing regulatory barriers and removing the need for resource consents, and obviously well publicised the issue around connection costs. There's certainly going to be a greater emphasis from this government on maximising private sector contribution to address those barriers. And the Urban Infill round is the first round that is probably going to reflect that new approach to co-investment through 2024. There is also, again, that has been well publicised, a cross-agency task force to work on the co-investment approach from 2025 onwards, and the new cost-benefit framework, which is something that the coalition government have as a prerequisite to any funding towards those 10,000 chargers. That task force consists of MB, Ministry of Transport, ECA, and Crown Infrastructure partners. What's really important, and a message certainly I want to stress right away, is the industry engagement not only is going to be important, but quite critical to the success of this program. And we certainly intend to be engaging every step of the process through the development of this, and then the subsequent piloting of any outcomes that we come up with. Next slide, please. So in 2024, we will have this funding round in place now. Camilla will give you the details of that one shortly. As part of the task force work and the industry engagement, we'll be coming up with new funding models and new approaches to financing charging infrastructure. And ECA will have more funding rounds this year that will largely exist to test those and make sure that they're obviously workable, not only for maximising government investment, but also from charge point operators' point of view as well, in order to make this successful so that we can obviously reach that $10,000 target. Those trials and testing that we'll undertake will inform an entirely new approach from 2025 onwards, and further details of this that will inform you as that becomes available to us. Next slide, please. And as I indicated, that Camilla will now outline the Urban Infill funding round. What we have identified is probably this one area is where there is the greatest need and priority. We published quite recently through a ministerial announcement the hub funding round that has got 25 odd hubs that are being deployed. That's probably sufficient now for that model once those are live for the current volume. So the focus now is looking at the urban areas, centre of our main centres. What's emerged as the primary issue for this is the electricity connection costs, particularly those in Auckland where the network is quite constrained and the costs are quite high for the size and capacity of the chargers that are being installed, and has certainly been relayed to the Minister that this is probably the #1 barrier in urban environments. So what we want to do is to be able to look at the role of the government in minimising the costs of the electricity connection to hopefully get some chargers in the ground. I think that's probably all. Is there anything else I want to? No. Good. Over to you.
All right, so for most of you, this will look relatively similar to our previous RFP materials, and we've tried to be as consistent as possible. I want to stress that the objective here is about urban infill infrastructure, and we've got a definition of urban as being defined as a town, city, or district with a resident population of over 10,000 people. And we're looking for chargers to go in where people are going to be spending between 30 minutes and 2 hours. So shopping locations, leisure facilities, and community amenities. We're also inviting applications for both new charger locations and for increasing the number of chargers on existing urban sites. So what we're looking for there is upgrading the connection capacity to enable simultaneous charging for multiple vehicles, for example, or additional charging facilities on that site. And also you'll notice that Richard mentioned this is all about connection costs. You may apply for up to 100% of the electrical connection costs, and we've set a maximum of 35% of total project costs. So that's more or less the proportion. What we'd like you to do is apply for what you need to apply for and justify it to us. If it is 100%, just tell us the story about why. And the total funding envelope for this round is up to 15 million. I'm not sure I could have written it any larger on the slide. Sorry about that. The round will close on the 31st of May, and we ideally hope to get all the contracts signed by the 31st of July to get them in the ground as soon as possible. Just to clarify, electrical connection includes the cost of transformers and switchboards, battery solutions, and power management systems. And I've highlighted the slide that we're really looking to increase accessibility, convenience, and availability of charging infrastructure in these areas. So do please focus on that when you're putting your applications in. Just a key outline, key outcomes we're looking for, as always, providing consumers with confidence in the availability and experience of public charging infrastructure. We like to see new billing methods or ones that simply work or work across all networks, and ensuring charging infrastructure standards are adequately met. So I mentioned interoperability, connectivity, energy efficiency. Those are all things that are mentioned in our RFP, and we do have some standards to meet. And lastly, we're supporting the transition to a zero emissions economy. So we're looking for New Zealand-based companies and projects. That's not a change from anything else we've done, but we will, in this round, expect to contract with the organizations that are actually charge point operators or capable of delivering them. As always, we're happy for you to partner and happy to have co-applicants, but there will only be one contractee as part of this, and they need to be able to deliver the charges themselves. That really just helps us stay in touch with what's required and the information that's being generated by the project. And just for clarity, state-owned enterprises, local councils, regional councils, and overseas partners can all be involved and be part of these projects. As you picked up already, the round doesn't have the standard 50% cap of co-funding. So just saying again, up to 100% of the electrical connection costs, and I've listed again what's included in that definition. But look, this is a contestable fund, so only ask for what you need. We think it's likely that we'll fund at least one site close to 100%, but remember that others may be more competitive than you at a particular site. And note that we would only consider an AC charging solution where the applicant can clearly demonstrate that the connection cost is a significant barrier and where public value, including value for money, is demonstrated with the proposed solution. So that's a quote straight out of the RFP. In terms of the criteria, we're going to score applications and the percentage of connection costs applied for, predominantly on fit for purpose for urban infill, and public value, including public value for money for the project. The public value that your project brings to a wider community and New Zealand is a really important criterion for us. It allows us to look beyond the nuts and bolts of similar solutions to see what benefit to the public could be. And you'll see some of the factors there that we take into account. And I mentioned before the need to demonstrate improvement to accessibility, convenience, and capacity. This is the key to the first criterion. Obviously, we need a workable solution within the constraints of the particular site. And we need to know that you've got the experience to deliver. So please work through all the issues in advance, anticipate all the costs, and get all the approvals under control that you need to get under control. Don't apply unless you can deliver what we want. Quick note on broader outcomes. They're the secondary benefits that are generated from EV charger development and management processes. So these can be environmental, social, economic, or cultural benefits, and we look to them to deliver long-term public value for New Zealand. There are some examples in the RFP, so hopefully that's enough for you to be getting on with right now. The RFP material is posted on GETS, where the RFP is. Our website has all the materials that you'll need, which is the RFP document, the response form, and the proposed funding agreement. And just holding my hand up, we posted a draft funding agreement in the first 3 days. My deepest apologies. That's all been fixed. If you do have any questions about that or you noticed something weird, do let us know through the applications@eco.govt.nz email. Please take the time to read through the funding agreement and schedules. You may be familiar with the way we already work. Schedule 3 will give you some insight as to the type of data and information that we're looking to get out of the projects, and you'll need to build these into your projects and show us that we'll get the insights that we're looking for. That's actually my last slide.
Look, I wouldn't mind just stressing a couple of points, is that we do know that charges are being deployed independently of any government contribution. So we need to make sure that public investment needs to go where it needs to be to unlock more private investment and help bridge that gap to commercial viability. And the market has told us and told the minister that the urban destination is the priority, and the electrical connection cost is the main barrier to deployment. So this round really is reflecting that those issues and the government priorities. So this funding round is going to focus on that connection cost and ensuring that there's a lower cap on the government contribution, because I think over time, as commercial viability becomes more apparent, then the role of government will diminish as the chargers get deployed.
And just building on that, and the bit that I missed on this slide is that questions on the RFP, please come to us at the applications email. If you've got questions and comments on the future model for EV charging, we will be really keen to talk to you about that. As Richard mentioned before, the task force is working on this cross-government, and they will be reaching out to you soon. By participating in this RFP today, we have your details, and so that's part of the process that we will follow up with everyone. Obviously, if you don't want to participate, do let us know. Okay, I think we can move to any questions. Sarah, have you got any in the chat at this point?
Kia ora, yeah, there's a couple in here just looking at clarification. The first is from Chris MacArthur asking, can funding be used for non-electrical infrastructure work? A lot of our sites already have oversized electrical connections, so security and traffic management upgrades might be more significant costs.
Yeah, at this point, that's excluded. In the past, we've included some of those for safety, safety concerns and health and safety and traffic management. But this is a different model in this case, Chris, and it's not, unfortunately, going to be included in this specific round. It's a good question, though, and perhaps we can take that up with, through the task force in terms of the future model and what sort of things should be included.
Right. The next is there a minimum and maximum charging capacity that ECA would like to see for this round of funding?
So we haven't specified a minimum or maximum. That's really for the market to determine, and for the charge point operators. Where it becomes relevant then is the competitiveness between applications for us to fund. And if there's an oversubscription, then there may be some relevance in that if an excessively large capacity charger is being deployed in an urban environment, then it's going to potentially be less competitive than a smaller one. But again, it's entirely up to the applicants to put an argument as to why they want to put the size of the charger, understanding what the demand will be from the driver and the time with which they'll be at that point.
That's great. Does this new approach mean that the quote-unquote broadband funding model for public charging is no longer planned?
No, the broadband model is forming the basis, and the task force will look at that model as a starting point. There are some unique characteristics of charging which make it quite different to broadband, but no, the starting point will be looking at the success of that model and how it worked, and taking the learnings from that into the model that's going to be used for charging. So that's one of the reasons why we've got Crown infrastructure partners on that task force. They'll be bringing that lens to the modelling work.
And in the meantime, we're keen to maintain as much market momentum as we can while testing out the new thinking from the new government.
Is the 15 million funding on first come basis until the amount is reached?
No, it's a contestable round. So everybody will apply. We will assess them all at the same time. And if there's enough money to cover all of the applications that meet the criteria and are deemed best public value for money, then they will be ideally approved. That our standard process will apply, and we're looking to do those moderations during June. We've set ourselves a tight time frame, so hopefully we'll be in a position to make announcements from kind of mid-July onwards.
Right. Who will be sitting on the decision-making panel?
We've got a range of ECA expert staff and external experts as well.
but that panel will be making a recommendation, and the decision maker will sit with the ECA CEO.
We've got a couple of questions about the rationale for the 35% of the connection costs and the 100% of the connection costs and the 35% cap on that. One asking what's the rationale, given that grid costs can be excessive.
So the government has an expectation of a reducing contribution over time. It has been 50% in the past, but the last couple of funding rounds, I think the average is down now below around about 40%. I don't have the exact number at hand, but it's a declining contribution as more and more charges go in independently of government support, and the competitiveness of funding rounds is resulting in a decreasing contribution. This is just a reflection of that further reduction and the fact that the focus now is on the connection cost rather than the overall project.
Right. And finally,
I'm sorry, Sarah, just to interrupt as well, and that's why included in that is the power management systems and any sort of battery solutions that you might bring in. So, you know, we're not saying just put the biggest pipe you can in there. We're saying, you know, how can you best manage the solution on the site for your users?
Will indicative costs be acceptable if actual costs can't be obtained before the closing date?
Please try and get them as close to final costs as you can. We recognise that timing is, you know, however much time we allow, it's never really enough. So please do what you can. Once you have gotten your materials in by the deadline, that means generally speaking, we're able to allow a couple of extra days after that to finalize any numbers that you've provided. But, you know, do let us know if that's the case, and we'll try and be as flexible as we can.
We've got a couple of questions sort of related to geography. One is, are we looking for a geographical spread of projects? And the other is, will we consider locations that don't fall under the urban definition? That is, for example, locations that close up the every charger every 75k goal.
Well, I'll start and then Camilla can pick it up. I think from an overall delivery point of view, what we're trying to do is to provide charging where people are naturally going to be for 30 minutes to 2 hours. So this is not at home, in the workplace, in a hotel environment. It's where people are taking the opportunity at destinations to top up. And that's really the focus of the area. And other than that, you know, we are open to geographical locations in the urban centres that are specified in the RFP, but again, it's up to you to put forward an argument to say that whatever community that you're looking to put a charger in, that you know, there is demand.
Having just about achieved the charger every 75 kilometres, that's not really the focus of this round. As Richard said, it's really about what are people doing, where are they, and what are their needs at the time. So geographical spread is kind of neither here nor there. It's more to do with what people spread there is, if that makes sense.
A couple of questions about assessment. One is how we balance the need for value for money when some of the largest needs are where the new connection costs are greatest, and also how do we measure public value?
Yes, that's an interesting one. It is that, you know, the value for money is the one that we look at, and there is some defined criteria, and Camilla can go into the detail of that. It's in the RFP. But fundamentally, what we're looking at is where there is a market barrier to the connection, to the deployment of chargers in urban locations. And I think Auckland is probably one where, you know, we're well aware that connection costs are extremely high and therefore a barrier to deployment of charging. So, you know, the role of the public money is to help make those more viable for charge point operators. And that's probably where the bulk of the funding will go. public value has been defined in the RFP, isn't it?
Yes, as much as we can. It's a concept that sort of exists above itself, but what we've tried to do to help you out is include some of the things that we've listed here. So they're in a little bit more detail in the RFP. It really gives us the opportunity to have a look at things like total project cost, cost per charger. The way that we've always looked at charging projects in RFPs in the past, we're not throwing all of that out. We want to make sure that it's fit for purpose at that site. If we get two applications in a similar location, but one of which is $1 million project and one is a $10 million project or whatever, clearly there's going to be some question of public value in terms of which one we support for what each of you and we think is the need at that location. It sounds a little vague, but we will be looking at all of those types of KPIs and criteria in order to be able to compare similar projects.
And we have a clarifying question on public value, given what they say, the historical undervaluation of AC Type 2 sockets by ECA, despite the lower cost kilowatt per hour offer and overall project costs, and the widespread use in other countries and other EV markets.
Sorry, what was the question though?
Defining public value in light of our historical undervaluation of AC Type 2 sockets, despite significant community benefits and widespread use elsewhere.
AC charging has a role to play and it has a significant benefit. Probably don't need to go into here. But the question then becomes, is there a role for public money to support those? So what is the barrier of putting AC charging in? It's certainly far more cost effective in the right place. This particular funding round is designed to support destination charging where people are going to be, or drivers are going to be, for between 30 minutes and 2 hours. That doesn't necessarily play towards AC charging. We certainly wouldn't dismiss it, but there would need to be a strong argument as to why AC charging would have a role in those locations.
And I think some of the one of the previous slides was talking about the connection costs being overwhelmingly high for that site, and that may be something that we can then address as part of the value for money.
Does the site need to be confirmed and committed before the tender closes?
Yes, ideally, as much as possible. The reason I say this is, if we've assessed a number of projects and we get to the contract and then, we have recommended a particular set of sites and 5 of them fall through, we're not able to go back to the tier 2 applications to say, oh, well, you're on. So from our perspective, it's quite risky, not having a clear and approved site, which I'm sure you can all appreciate. It adds to time, cost, and stress for everybody involved. So look, as much as you can, please give us assurance that the site has been approved and selected.
Can I ask for co-funding for solar as well as the connection upgrade? Unfortunately
not. At this stage, ECA doesn't support generation. If that's part of your project, please, put it in there. We wouldn't kind of value it in the same way as some of the other assets that may have been included in previous rounds, but it certainly adds to the ability to control the power use at that site.
There is potentially an opportunity outside this fund, but probably more in our tech demo area, that if the use of solar is unique and has a demonstration potential for market replication, then there could be a role for ECA to support that. So we'd be keen to understand what the project is and what the complexities and the barriers are, and whether there is a role for us through another fund.
Thank you. And I think the final question, they've been coming in as we've been asking them, but this is the last one, is where a site is being enhanced by now taking advantage of connection costs, which in the past may have been prohibitive for additional charging capacity, would ECA consider the costs already borne by the applicant?
In short, the answer is no. We're not going to retrospectively apply a grant to a project. I presume whoever it is has put their own business case forward to install a charger independently of any government support, and therefore has a business case for that. If they want to grow that and there's an additional incremental connection cost to put additional capacity in, then we would look at that.
That's great. No further questions.
Okay, well, I guess we will leave it there. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions and participation. We will make the recording available on the website. And yeah, do send in any more questions that you have to us. Thanks so much.